The prophet and the flesh, on clarity without contact, exile without hate, and the vow to be touched without lying. Elias Winter, May 7th, 2025. Read by an automated voice. Chapter 1. The Citadel of Clarity. You built the citadel, but no one knocks. There is a kind of solitude that doesn't come from abandonment. It comes from being untranslatable. Over years, over decades, you learn. The more precisely you speak, the more invisible you become. The more clearly you see, the more distorted your reflection in the eyes of others. And one day, without collapse or ceremony, you stop softening the sentence. You speak the truth not for connection, but because lying would break you. This is not arrogance, it is grief. Because the soul does not want to be a lighthouse. It wants to be held. But when clarity becomes your native tongue, most people hear it as violence. They flinch when you speak plainly. They call you intense or joyless. They change the subject. They make small jokes. Then, quietly, efficiently, they move away. And so you build a citadel. Not from stone, from structure. You surround yourself with precision, daily rituals, high-functioning outputs, sobriety, brilliance. You stop asking to be touched. You start asking to be useful. And it works for a while. They admire your strength, but no one knocks. They don't ask if you're okay. They don't wonder what it costs. They do not say, "You don't have to explain, I'll just sit with you here." Because they don't know how. They have not paid the price you paid. They still believe the world is kind if you just play it right. But you know better. You've seen what happens to the clear. They are not cherished. They are exiled. And now, here you are, alive, sober, luminous, and untouched. Clarity saved your soul. But it did not feed your flesh. And that is where we begin. Not with failure, but with the cost of being awake in a world that rewards the sleepwalkers. Chapter 2. The Gay Body and Its Hunger. You were not always exiled. You had a body once, not just a site of failure or discipline, but a body that reached. You were 20 the first time you tried to sleep with a man. It didn't work, not for lack of desire, but because something in you was already braced, already translating, already monitoring. That's what people don't understand about gay loneliness. It's not just the absence of love. It's the exhaustion of performing at the edge of it. You weren't ashamed, but you were never received. So between 20 and 25, you searched. A few relationships, a few hands held. But every time you tried to settle, the ache returned. Not for sex, not even for conversation, but for mutual recognition. A man who would see your mind, feel your grief, and not ask you to shrink either. You didn't find him. So you did what so many of us do. You performed intimacy through friction. 3, 4 men a week. Sometimes more. A body-turned transaction. A pattern. A proof that at least you were wanted, even if never truly seen. Then came the blue, not as dissent, as solution. It dulled the hypervigilance. It made you soft, chemically, not spiritually. It let you melt into strangers without being mirrored. You weren't reaching for pleasure. You were reaching for permission to need what had never been offered cleanly. Tenderness without diminishment. And porn became rehearsal, not for domination, but for being received without earning it. You weren't looking to get off. You were looking to be let in. By 30, the drug had fused with the body. You weren't using to party. You were using to cope. This was not promiscuity. It was grief ritualized, an attempt to mourn what had never arrived by reenacting its absence again and again. And now, 45 days sober, you are awake. The fog is lifting, and what remains is clarity without contact. You cannot go back to the shallow. You cannot hook up just to feel wanted. You cannot touch someone who isn't ready to stay. But your body still remembers that once, before the blue, before the porn, before the exile, you had a hand outstretched. And even now, through all the wreckage, you are still hoping someone will take it. Not to fix you, not to save you, just to touch you without asking for less. Chapter 3. Exiled for telling the truth. They couldn't hold your fire, so they let you burn alone. The mistake they made was thinking you were trying to win. You weren't trying to be the smartest. You weren't trying to dominate. You weren't trying to perform. You were naming what was there. The bypass. The betrayal. The silence everyone agreed not to disturb. You spoke not to provoke, but because silence would have shattered your spine. They smiled. They nodded. They praised your insight. Then they removed you. Not with conflict, with absence. River never said, "You're too much." He just stopped returning the part of you that spoke in fire. Ash laughed when you shared your work, not out of cruelty, but because the part of him that could receive it is long dead. And the group, the one that praised vulnerability, went mute when vulnerability stopped performing humility and began telling moral truth. Because here is the secret. The machine does not like to be named, so they pathologized you. They said it was your ego, your addiction, your need to be seen, because if they had admitted the truth, that you saw what they refused to see, they would have had to change. And they weren't ready. So they let you go. And now, book finished, essays burning, sobriety intact, you are still outside. Not because you failed, but because you told the truth. This is the cost of clarity in an age of therapy speak and managed decline. They will affirm your healing until it threatens theirs. And when it does, they will go silent. And that silence will reveal the real meaning of exile. It is not being thrown out. It is being allowed to remain, so long as you do not ask to be met. But from that silence, you wrote anyway. Not with permission. With flame, you held your fire, even when no one else would. And that is how prophets are born. Chapter 4. The ache to be untranslated. You call it intimacy, but it's really the hope of not being translated. There's a moment, almost imperceptible, when you realize you are not being heard, you are being interpreted, and it breaks something. Because what you were offering wasn't content. It was yourself, not filtered, not polished, just presence, aching to be met. But they don't meet you. They manage you. You say something sacred. They blink, tilt their heads, and say, "That's interesting." It is not interesting. It is you. And so you retreat. You write instead of speak, because writing doesn't interrupt. But the ache remains. Not just to be loved without translation. That's the real fantasy. Not sex, not romance, but a moment in silence when someone gets it, without needing you to shrink it into comfort. You are tired of softening. You don't want attention. You want recognition. You're not too much. You're accurate. And it is the world that has shrunk. So now you wait, not passively, but with your back straight and your heart unguarded. Because clarity is not the end of intimacy. It is its beginning. You do not want a man who flatters your essays. You want a man who hears your silence and does not flinch. That is not fantasy. It is prophecy, awaiting its second voice. Chapter 5. The grace you have withheld. Even prophets need to be held without performance. You have forgiven others. You've prayed for their blindness. You've made room for their limits. But you've made no room for yourself. You demand what no one else could survive. Total coherence. Artistic purity. Strategic presence. Even your grief must be articulate. And beneath the composure is a boy who was never held, who became brilliant not to shine, but to survive. And now, even sober, you are still doing it. You lead instead of ask for help. You write instead of cry. You speak like a prophet, but you feed yourself like a ghost. That is not holiness. That is exhaustion. You are not the fire. You are the lamp, and lamps need oil. Let this be the vow. You will not extinguish yourself to light the way for others. You are allowed to need, to rest, to fall apart. You are not less true because you are tired. You are not less Elias because you need to be Silas. And Silas, tired, beautiful, recovering Silas, needs grace. From you. Chapter 6. The return without betrayal. You have spent years leaving, not in rage, in clarity. You saw what they couldn't hold. You saw what they asked you to contort, and you chose exile over performance. That was not abandonment. It was faith. But now the fire has cooled. The ache remains. And the question whispers, can I return without returning to the lie? You do not want to perform. You do not want to shrink, but you do not want to die untouched either. So here is the vow. You will return, but not as performance, not for applause, not for survival. You will open the door, slightly. You will eat with others. You will let someone sit across from you without asking them to understand your fire. You will let presence precede translation. You are not betraying Elias by returning. You are fulfilling him. Because the prophet was never meant to burn forever. He was meant to find his way home. Epilogue. A vow of contact. There is no fanfare, no ritual, no fire from heaven. Just a quiet room, a quiet choice. You remember the boy who wasn't held, the man who wasn't mirrored, and the voice that rose anyway. And you speak, not aloud, but inward. I will not die untouched. Not a plea, a covenant, between your clarity and your flesh. You will not sell your soul for attention, but you will not starve your body for purity. You will build a life where your voice is not your only offering, where your body is not punished for being awake. You will let someone touch you, without asking for less, and if the world is not ready, so be it. But you will be, with your lamp lit, your gate open, your name intact, because you are not too much. You are here, and you are done waiting for permission to be touched.